At the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you on Power Talk. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today. And as the spirits align, it has been a long time coming. My next guest is somebody who has developed a niche. Really is always a fascinating situation to be able to take the Hammond B3 organ and incorporate that into more folk and R&B and more blues type settings. That undulating padding allows sometimes square rock to be able to stretch out more based on the just sort of those chord structures. I'm used to it, hearing it from Don Patterson and Big John Patton and Charles Kennard and these guys that were playing, soul jazz or acid jazz. But my next guest is somebody who, quite frankly, was absolutely uncompromisable in his ability to road dog it. He was on the road a lot. He was playing a lot before the world changed, before things became paused, the eternal pause. But this man has been painting on his palette for some time with a lot of amazingly creative musicians, and what an honor. John Ginty, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Jake, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it, man. It's a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm glad we finally can connect.
Big thanks to Dan Fadell and Gary Waldman for whatever spiritual. I've been asking Fadell, I'm like, where's Ginty, man? He's on the road. He's just never home. I remember that Peter Rowan told me that the road can actually eat you alive, and I've talked to enough cats to know that while there is that sort of euphoria or people screaming your name or just feeling so high, and then ultimately getting off the road and you're cleaning up dog shit in the backyard, you're back to just that's what Lee Scolari told me. So I wonder about the need for the road for you in terms of just feeling authentic as a creative musician.
It's the only place that you have left as a musician today, really. I mean, if you're not on tour, I'm not sure what else you can do. You can't just be an artist who sells records and writes songs and opts to not go on the road. Those days are gone. So the only place to really make a living is on tour. What you just said, I mean, it hasn't eaten me alive, but it's kicked my butt, and the road has put me down more than a couple times in my career, and it's a hard place. It's a hard place to live, and I've done it on a lot of different levels, right? So I've done the, van and trailer, drive yourself across the country, and 12-hour drives and just barely making it to sound check. And I've done it, on the level of like the Dixie Chicks, where it's all, you sort of give yourself to the river and you end up at the gig. But the one thing that they all have in common, though, is, the plane, it still wheels up at 6 a.m. The bus leaves when the bus leaves. It takes as long to get there, no matter how famous you are, how many records you sell. It still takes 12 hours to get there. So it's a tough place on all accounts, but it's also, the road is also like, getting tattoos. Like, it hurts, but you can't wait to get another one. So
I look at it and I say, this is, some of the, I don't know, I'm not like a Ginty aficionado in terms of discography or band. You played with so many different outfits, but I just know in talking to other younger cats who are part of, groups that can play sort of off-night venues in St. Louis, but also sort of have a niche at, the name is escaping me now, but, like sort of, maybe sort of upper scale, sort of eateries or play restaurants where they can play and make a little bit, city winery, excuse me, so they can sort of vacillate between like sort of a little bit medium high end, low end, but at the end of the day, they're a lot of the accompanists, they're not making any more money because after it's all said and done, the money has to go to the tour manager and the lawyer and you have to put money back into recording. And at the end of the day, even if you're playing in front of a packed house in Poughkeepsie or something at the Chance or something like that, you're not actually taking home that much bread. Is that a fair analysis?
Totally, and I've seen both perspectives of that too. So I've gone out, as the player in the band for any number of bands, from startup too, like Robert Randolph before anybody knew who he was. Like we worked really hard for a couple of years getting that thing off the ground. So I've done it as like the guy in the band. I've done it as the session guy, but I've also gone out as the John Ginty band. So I have a perspective on both sides. And when your name is on the marquee and it's your van and trailer and it's your problem, it's your booking agent, it's your ticket to sell, man, that's a whole new world of problems, and you really find out how expensive it is to go on tour. Given the choice, I definitely much prefer being the guy in the band. It's a lot of pressure when you put your name on the marquee and it's your record, and if you don't sell tickets that night, it's not just a bad business move, but it hurts your feelings.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to ask you, but from the Ginty leadership point of view, how do you stay when you know that it's an underwhelming crowd? Does that affect you? How do you get it out of your mind so that you can at least be a conduit for the music coming through you from the heavens and not distracted by the quantifiable bottom line aspects of it?
Well, you have to turn that off when you hit the stage, and you have to. The best piece of advice I ever heard on that was, don't blame the people who came. So. Oh my
God, dude, that's a Yogi Berra line.
Yeah, right.
That's a sick line, dude. I love that line, dude.
If only 10 people show up, don't take it out on them. It's tough to do. It's easier said than done, and I've been in that position more than a couple times. And and that's when the road eats you up, is because you play that show, and then you come out the next morning and your van's been broken into, and then the transmission blows up going over to Rocky Mountains. And that sounds like I'm making it up, but I'm not.
Right. No, absolutely.
This
is the real
all three of those things absolutely happened to me. So
in succession?
And the next morning the van got broken into, and we somehow pulled it together and kept going, and then blew up the transmission going over the Rockies. So, it can turn that quick when you're an artist out there doing it. And if it's your name on the thing, then it's your problem. All those things are your problem, So it's hard, man.
Yeah, well, it's like Louis Hayes told me at 91 or whatever, however old that genius is. He said everything in life is hard. But I think being a road dog is really hard, and I wonder, not that you're a prophet or a psychic, but how much do you worry? Putting yourself aside, because you were whatever touring circuits are left within the United States and beyond, you have been accessing those. Up till coronavirus. But I wonder about how concerned you are the longer this goes on, the longer we sink into this dysfunction and dystopic sort of realm, and the idea that you can't really have huge communal spiritual healings of music. How concerned are you about your fellow brethren, the musicians, as this goes along? I think about the jazzers, the shaman cats that I've interviewed, and I know that some of them probably can live off royalties, and some of them can, get by, and their soul might be dying because they can't play live, but they're going to be okay financially. But I'm just talking about my peer group, Gen Xers, and and younger, the longer this goes on, do you have faith that there'll be some ingenuity in terms of people figuring out how to monetize their content and music without being in front of a live audience, or do you worry that we will see a lot of mental health crises?
Yeah, there's a lot to worry about with the situation, and I saw it come to a screeching halt. I've been in the Allman Betts band for the past year, and we were in the middle of a tour on the West Coast, and the bus was parked in front of the venue in San Francisco, and I woke up at 9 a.m. hearing some heavy discussions going down, and I was on a plane at noon, and that was it. It was over. We've canceled over 100 shows. And what concerns me is I do believe that artists will always art. We will always do what it is that we do, and we're kind of used to starving and being in a position of creating art, when times are bad. That's when the good art kind of happens. So that I'm not as concerned about as much as I am what I've seen it do to the guys who set up the art, the crew guys, the sound guys, the light
Good
guys,
point.
the bus drivers. Yeah. These guys, they all got shut off, and they don't have a YouTube channel, or they don't have a catalog of songs, or they don't have a lot of the outlets that artists have. And as you've seen, in diversity like this, the artists will step up and they'll find a way to, play together virtually. Or I've had all manner of sessions come through my little studio here since this whole thing started. All types of collaborations and video projects and ideas. And so the art is still boiling and bubbling and happening. The art is still happening. Whether or not, how many of us can survive not getting paid for the art, I don't know. And certainly there'll be casualties of that, and there'll be people who just won't be able to do it. But the art certainly will survive this thing. It's just going to adapt to it, So I said yes to do this show in Morristown. It got announced on June 25th, outdoors, a drive-in concert. So
wow, is it Ginty band or what? What's the gig?
Yeah, we're billing it as John Ginty and Friends.
Oh my God, that is sick.
I'm gonna have a bunch of special guests show up, as I usually do, and I've cast that net wide because with everything that's going on, I'd like to really fill that stage with a bunch of diverse and special artists.
I love it. And do you? It's bold. It's an outdoor venue. It's, have you thought about, it's just funny. I'm home with my daughters every other week in Tucson here, and we haven't really gotten hit by like New York or Jersey or, the way that the coronavirus has hit some places. But
Right.
You have any idea, will a town enforce social distancing so that people will be six feet apart from each other, or are people going to be on stage?
Yeah. So it was actually, it's the big theater in Morristown, Impact. They reached out to me, and I do a Ginty band show there on New Year's Eve if I'm available to do it for the first night Mars, because it's the town I grew up in, and I have a long history with the theater. I used to ride my bike to that theater,
Wow.
So to get to headline it is special. So they actually reached out, and it was their idea to do this at it's in a Morris County Park System Park, and they've been working with the health commissioner, and there's a limit to the number of cars that can come in, and there's a limit to the number of people, and there's my band and crew all have, we all have to wear masks and follow the rules and stay apart, and we're all game to do that. But it's uncharted territory, man. I have no idea, somebody asked me, because once it got announced, all of a sudden, like I've been getting a lot of calls from the press, and it's everybody wants to know what I think how this gig's going to go. And
you're like, there's no roadmap here. Yeah, no, it's really,
no,
it's so bold.
never,
I mean, it's a bold. I mean, it's always about how big is was it an amphitheater or I mean, what is it exactly?
No, it's a county park field. So they're going to put up a stage, and they're going to put up a PA, and they're going to allow 160 cars in, 4 people to a car, and they stay in their cars. We're going to have a full big PA that they can roll their windows down and we'll play loud enough. But also, there's an FM station that'll pick it up, and you can dial it in FM on your car. So supposedly all these things have been checked out and they work. I'm not the first guy to do it. I'm one of the first guys to do it, but it's been happening in Europe. The drive-in concerts have been happening, and Southside Johnny announced one that's coming up in July. So I don't know. Let's test it out. Let's see. Maybe this is at least a temporary way. I know that my goal, first of all, it's a benefit for the theater and for the people who work at the theater. I'm not taking a dime to do it. So I'm going to get that out of the way. But when they called and asked me to do it, the main motivation that I have and the main thing I have right now is, that feeling that you get when you're outside of the concert and they fire up the PA and that first thing comes through. Man, I want to give that to people. If they're stuck in their cars for it, well, that's what we have to do. But I think we could do it and have a really good time, and they can feel that, and I'll put that out to them, and I'll put on the best show I could put on.
Dude, I mean, it's a little, I haven't been able to see you live in person, but for me, music has taken on such a different realm in the last few years. I mean, I've been on this journey as a broadcaster for 9 years, but I used to, I'd go see like Medeski Martin and Wood, or, Gil Scott Heron back in the late 90s at BU. And, I used to do it because it was like the cool thing to do, or, I was supposed to do, my friends were going. So, but there was this whole element of letting the body dance and the idea of being literally in the front of, like, as close up to the stage as possible in front of the speaker stacks, or just getting the natural ambient sound of the stage and getting pulverized by that incredible frequency of all the musicians. And just the idea of knowing that if I didn't get there in time and I'm in the back, and I can say it would be my own mental hang up, and my ego would be involved because I'd want to be much closer and I'd want to dance. And I guess if this is the best we can do, I mean, I'm going to go through the sunroof and be fist pumping, just to let you know that I'm fired up. But it's constraining for me because, I mean, I could just be listening to a CD in the car, Freddie Hubbard or whatever, and I'm just dancing all over the place. It's very hard to control my body when I love the music that I'm seeing. So. Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I just feel like it'll be fascinating to connect with you after the concert to find out how it all went down.
Absolutely. Feel free to reach out. I'll give you the whole rundown. I'm as fascinated as everybody.
Yeah. No. I mean, don't call. I mean, you can just say though, if people are like, what's going to happen? You're going to say, I'm going to play music, right? I mean, that's all you're going to be able to do. You have no idea what it's going to be like, but you're going to lay it out there.
I know I have the proper tools of the trade. I'm going to bring a Hammond B3. There's going to be a PA. I got great musicians on board. So I know what can happen on our end. I don't know what the fan experience is going to be. Like I said, I hope they can just feel something that they haven't felt in a couple months, and I think that would be really, really good,
I'm I'm curious
together.
About and I realize that it's going to the people, like you said, that are, the crew, the stage people and the people that work the venue, and the money's all going back to that. But are you putting a discount on the Ginty Fest ticket wise? Is it less money than it normally would be, or does that factor in at all?
Yeah, I didn't come up with it because I'm donating my time to my show, so I didn't come up with the ticket price. They kind of the theater did that stuff, so and again, kind of uncharted waters. I don't know what exactly you charge for this.
Fascinating.
But whatever people pay, I think they tried to break it down to $25 a person. A car of 4 people is $100. So
Wow.
now if you're by yourself and it's just you and your car, then all of a sudden the ticket's $100. I get that there's an issue there, and once again, that's just part of us trying to figure it out, man. We're all just trying to figure it out, So, but
can I ask you a question?
This
is so important. Talking to John Ginty here on the Jake Feinberg Show. I mean, when you say we, I mean, this again is another crisis with the idea of musicians in the past. John Ginty would be going on the road, and you'd have to worry about your rig and making sure that you were playing the tunes the right way. And as a leader, obviously there's more responsibility. But the fact that now musicians have to control their media, and for a lot of them that are not hooked up to major iconic names like Steve Miller or Dickie Betts or Tower of Power, or people that don't have infrastructure, they have to wear all 8 hats or 9 hats. So when you say we're all trying to figure it out, are musicians really the best ones to try to figure out how to create a festival environment, or are there other people that you can give a shout out to who are really kind of I don't want to say promoters, but who are I'm searching for the infrastructure for the music community, because I recognize that maybe during JFK's time and quite possibly during LBJ's time, there was, during the riots especially, a lot of money was put into the arts in the inner cities. A lot. It was a common sense solution to put instruments in the hands of cats and to quell violence. And now you have the instruments have been basically taken out of schools. You can donate them back. But, essentially the idea of actually, without Bill Graham, there would have been no monetization of the San Francisco scene. So who is, if anybody, can you give a shout out to, who's actually trying to spearhead this to move forward?
Yeah, so I think, along with artists who create whatever it is they create, whether it's music or painting or dance or whatever, along with those people, you have to have creative people in the infrastructure who aren't necessarily artists, but who get it. So, like, for this gig, yeah, I'll shout out Katie Dempsey. She's a really creative person, and she's one of the creative directors at the theater. And this was her idea, and she reached out to me on it and said, how does it feel to you? Like, what does that feel like? If we did this, is that something you would want to do? Are you into it? And she's trying to raise some money, but she's also a creative person. So, and her husband is an artist too. So she really gets it. So there's people like that are in between us. They're the go-betweens between the corporate, the real world, and and the world that artists live in.
Right.
There has to be a middle person there. So Katie Dempsey is the one for this one, and I love that she reached out. I was honored she reached out, and she could have called anybody, and I was really happy she called. And it's my hometown, and like I said, I have a history with that theater, and so I jumped at the chance to do it. Of course I'll do it. It sounds totally weird. Is it going to work? I have no idea. Do I have the tools I need to put on a great show? Yes. All right, copy that. I'll see you there. I'll see you on the 25th,
Well, God, I wish I could get an RV out there. I'd be out there in a second to support the arts in any way, shape, or form. John, we have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I'm going to put this voice in for you right now and pay attention to the content, and we'll come back.
Played an album and that's, I I've been listening to it ever since. It's Stan Getz with Oscar Peterson and Ray Brown, and who was the guitar player that played with Oscar Peterson?
Boy, they put me on. Was it Herb Ellis or maybe Barney?
Yeah.
Maybe Barney. Yeah.
Ellis. So, no drums, but man, this thing I loved it.
Why?
Yeah. Because it was burning, and Stan Getz was like on fire.
Yeah.
The whole band was on fire. And it was like, I mean, for that kind of music, those were some, you know, they captured some really intense grooves on that album. And I had never heard of it. A friend of mine in Europe, you know, I was over there, we were on tour, and he played it. And it killed me.
Dude, I gotta. John Ginty, you want to take a guess at who that is?
Oh man,
I'm not sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I thought I had it for a second, but
well, take a guess. I'm sure it's a guy that maybe you've collaborated with him, but probably have rubbed elbows maybe somewhere. A drummer by the name of Steve Gadd. That was my second interview with him from November of 2016.
The voice was familiar. I was like, who is
Did you
Gadd?
have you
threw me when he
knew,
said they were in tour in Europe? I don't know if he did that tour.
Well, no, first of all, you played with Gadd before?
I have not. I've played with a lot of great drummers, but not played with Gadd.
This is what I wanted to ask you about, because what we were talking. It's just ironic that we were talking about this in the interview. It's the idea of so many guys, especially because the guitar in the 50s, even into the 60s, was primarily a rhythm instrument. So you had Freddie Green from Basie, and even guys like Herb Ellis, Tal Farlow. Those guys could stretch, but I mean, they were still, the saxophone was the major lead solo instrument. And so I was asking Steve if he ever got off on an album, a drummerless, so everybody had to have their own really strong inner time feel. You couldn't just look at the rhythm section or the bass and the drums and say, okay, they're going to keep time and I'm just going to wank over the top of it, right? They all had to have their own good internal time. And he starts talking about this album on Verve. It was Oscar Peterson, Ray Brown, Stan Getz, and Herb Ellis. Drummerless quartet. Burning stuff. No drummer. And I wanted to know about your experience playing in a band, or when you didn't have, quote unquote, what the definition of a rhythm section is supposed to be, which is keeping time, and you had to rely on your own internal time feel in order to cook the groove.
Interesting. I've had a couple of those moments, but they've all been, they've been more towards...
not jazz per se, maybe more like folk or something.
Yeah, definitely not. I'd probably would be in trouble.
I'm telling you, it is remarkable to hear no drums. Oscar, Ray Brown, Stan on horn, and Herb Ellis. It's like it's so burning, and it's so fear. It's unreal.
I know how hard that is. I mean, I spend the majority of my career, with a click track, because I just play on a lot of records and, especially doing remote stuff. And I've had a home studio. I've been doing remote recording way before coronavirus. So I've had a home studio for 20 years now. So I've done hundreds of records out of my studio, and a lot of that, the click is like necessary just to get the job done. So the click is my friend. I like a click track. I'm not one of those musicians who's opposed to it. I've had them save my life before, actually. So,
can you give an example? Because I've been real hard on the whole play to the click and also play straight beat. Again, You're not a drummer, but talk about the click saving your life musically.
I actually am a drummer. I started as a drummer, and
excuse me, you are a drummer. Okay.
Yep, and it's still something I do. I don't play drums professionally, but I do a lot of percussion work professionally.
Interesting.
I played shaker and tambourine on a lot of records.
That's awesome. I mean, that's diaspora right there, man. Yeah, that's cool.
Once again, yeah, where the click is your friend. So it's all situational, man. Like, I've certainly, like, the Almond Betts band doesn't use a click and shouldn't use a click. And
can you talk to the layperson that's listening? I think it's interesting why that wouldn't fit for that group, the click.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you want to be able to feel the room that you're in and the situation that you're in and play the song accordingly. So when the Almond Betts band is out, if we're at a big festival, we do Blue Sky or we do our new single Shining, if it's a couple clicks up outside at the big festival, that's appropriate. And if it's a couple down, if it's a little bit slower on the intimate theater session, that's appropriate. So, it's things like that you don't want to nail them down. But also situationally, I've been in an arena and had to play the front 48 bars of a song with the Dixie Chicks where it's just me and Natalie. It's just piano and vocal.
Interesting.
Nothing else.
Did you have to shed on that? I mean, how long did you have to shed to get that? I mean, I hate formula trips, but do you normally just go on feel, or did you guys really have to shed that?
We didn't, because
Good.
I'm a fan of the click. I like the click. I'm not afraid of a click. So in that situation, I was like, "Dear God, give me a click," because she's 40 feet away from me. I can't hear anything in here, and if this place screams, it's over. We're in real trouble. So I need that. I need that so that I stay in a pocket. I have something to hang on to. And, so this way when the band comes crashing in, everything's at the right speed. I can't rely that moment if I don't feel well that day, or if I feel a little nervous, or if I play it. I can't do that in that situation. Not for that situation. For that front 48, that's got to be right. And I want to be the guy to play it right. So that's why clicks they're my buddy. I swing and groove with them all the time. I love a good loop. I love that stuff. So yeah, I could lock up with it and make it fat and nasty every single night. Like it goes through the uprights every single night. Thanks to
dude, I just can't 59-yarder at the gun. I mean, okay. No I love this because, so I just want to be clear. You have an in-ear monitor with a click when you're playing in those settings, right? Like when you're waiting for the band to come in. Okay, so.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to love Ginty till the end of time, no matter what. But the idea is that talking to Alan Toussaint, interviewing Ahmad Jamal, these guys, like, they tuned to their heart. And I ask you, like the Dixie Chicks, after a while you have a tuner that says you're in tune, right? I mean, they didn't used to have tuners. You used to tune to your heart, which is why you had so much individual sound. And I understand it's a good gig. It's a stable gig. It's a good paying gig. You sort of just dive into the waters and let the stream take you. But how do you stay stimulated? Is it a formula trip gig? Meaning, are you playing? Carlos Santana has a residency or he did in Las Vegas, and he plays the same show every night. And it's like, this is, for me, it's like, and actually what was revelatory is when I talked to his bass player from the 70s, David Morgan. Santana's been playing the same show. He's been playing the same show for 40 years. And it's like, man, that's kind of a burn. I just want you to talk, being somebody who's pretty elastic, how do you get off on a formula trip?
So, with the Chicks, the trip is this. The three of them, Natalie, Marty, and Emily, they're three of the most talented people I've ever played music with. And the three of them could sit in front of you with a violin and a banjo and an acoustic guitar and blow your mind.
See, where is that? Does their crowd want? Can their crowd accept something like that? Because that would get me off.
Well, we would do it every night, every single night in the middle of the show. The three girls would come out and play Traveling Soldier, which is a really heavy song, and they played that, just the three of them on their instruments, in front of the curtain, right in front of the stage, raw, and it was beautiful and amazing every night. And then we would come up and join them, and I would play a melodica. I had a melodica and a trash can. Jimmy Paxton had a little drum set that we called Sanford and Drums. That was basically just junk and broken cymbals and stuff. And everybody played acoustic instruments. And we would burn for a half an hour, just right up front, bluegrass, straight up.
Really?
I suggest you check it out.
I mean, look at me. I'm in my own little bubble, Ginty. You're blowing my mind open right now.
We put out a DVD of the 2016 tour. It's really easy to find. It's on YouTube. Why don't you check out? I would check out.
You know what? After the, send me some links to check out. Send me some stuff.
I will.
Yeah, I'd love to see it because it's heartening to hear that.
White Trash Wedding. You can't beat it. It's burning bluegrass. We're playing it. There's no tricks. There's no clicks. There's no.
Yeah, I don't want any clicks anymore with Ginty. I know it's saving you sometimes, but I want the clicks going. Because like Dan Fadell, that dude has his own inner time field. There's no click with Dan Fadell. I mean, you've played with.
Okay.
You know.
All right, Jake. Let me tell you. I'm going to tell you a story.
Tell me a
I
story.
want the people to understand.
Please.
Whoever's listening, because I don't want this to get. Like I just because I play the clicks, I don't have soul. Or
I did. Ginty, come on.
I want you to dig this. Yeah. I want you to dig this story. This is a true story. Okay.
All right.
I got a call from Neal Casal in 1998, and I was out on tour with the family band, and he said, "Hey, man, are you home next week, like Thursday?" And I said, "Yeah, actually, I'm going to be home." He said, "Great." He said, "We're doing the David Letterman show with Shannon McNally. Dan Fadell's playing drums. Jason Crosby's playing organ. I'm playing guitar. Jeff Hill's playing bass. And we're going to do this song. Now That I Know is the name of the song. It's a great song off Shannon's album, Jukebox Sparrows, I believe is the name of the record. So we're going to do this. We need, there's two keyboards. The whole song starts with piano. And Jason's playing organ. Can you come in and play the piano?" And I said, "Sure, can do, no problem." And so I go there. It's all my boys, Dan on drums, the whole thing. Great. The front 16 bars is just piano and vocal. Okay, so once again, everything's a situation, right? The production manager comes up to me and goes, "This has got to be 3 minutes and 15 seconds. It can't be 3:17. It can't be 3:12. I really need you to land this in the spot." I said, "Great. I'm going to play this to the click." I got the number off the record. I put one little earphone in my ear and played the front 16 with Shannon with a little tiny click going in my ear. And when Fadell came in on the button, I bailed on the click and played the Fadell the rest of the song. I set the band up in a perfect tempo, nailed it right at 3:17 so it fit into the Letterman show. It was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do in that situation. And so I did it. And anybody can look it up. You can watch it. You can see it. I grooved that front 16 like my life depends on it.
Oh, my God. This is warming my heart. This is the most, did you guys, when you had to stick the landing on 3:15, did you have I guess the show is taped in the afternoon. Did you guys work anything out in advance, or did you just go hit it one time and it was done?
You get there, they tape at 5 o'clock, and then you go and you film the show at 5 and make it great. So, like, if I didn't use a click, if I had been a little fast, not only would that song have been a little fast for television, but I would have come in under the time. If I had been a little slow, it would have gone over time, and the song would have been slow for television. Like, I'm going to play it the tempo of the record, and it's going to come in right on time, and then that's going to be a good representation of the song that's on the record. It's going to be the right tempo. So it's just the right thing to do, man. It was the right situational thing to do. And it's not like I played the intro like a robot, I played it with groove and pocket and soul, baby.
Oh, damn, man. This is, I'm having a ball right now. Holy cow. Okay, so it was an orchestrated. This was going through my head last night. I need you help me and my audience understand this. But
Sure.
so I told you, sort of in the intro, I led in with this idea that, for a long time, the Hammond B3, well, a lot of cats just played left-hand bass, but some of them, like Chester Thompson and obviously Jack McDuff, Groove Holmes, those guys were just kicking pedals and playing bass lines, and it allowed for a buoyancy. It was a different kind of feel than an electric bass or anything like that. And obviously they were playing American Songbook or stretching out playing R&B, soul tunes, jazz tunes. And I wanted you to talk about, how the Hammond B3 can integrate into a Southern rock, country, folk setting. And I don't want to say, you're not going to start playing in odd time signatures or different meter, but it's different than having an acoustic piano. And I just would love you to talk about the nuances of bringing in my mind, a traditional jazz soul instrument, actually it really came out of the church, but gospel instrument into a rock setting, and how it can change things up, and so that you never play the same song the same way once.
Sure. Yeah, that's an excellent question. On the manual of a Hammond B3, it says the king of all instruments. And that's true, because I have not met a style of music that wasn't welcoming of the Hammond organ. I've put it on pretty much everything, from country and blues and rock to straight up pop, and kid songs. I've put it on, you name it, man. It's been accepting of a B3. And why is that? Well, it's about the glue. There's no better instrument out there to glue parts together and to give a foundation and a bed than a Hammond B3, right? So a good example, a producer I work with named Jim Scott out in L.A. who produces a ton of great stuff.
Yeah, Wilco, those guys, he's great.
Everything, yeah. I heard him once say, he was talking about the Allman Brothers, and somebody in the room said, man, how is Dwayne getting that tone? And he said, it's what Greg's playing.
Wow.
And everybody went, what? Like, it's because of what Greg was playing that makes those guitar tones sound the way they do.
Oh.
Take away the organ, and it's not going to be the same. And I get what he means by that. I understand that. And having been the B3 player in plenty of bands that have 2 or 3 guitars or more, totally get it. Being in the family band, which was I was just one of 4 guys, but there was so many notes being played by the other 3 guys. There was fireworks coming off the drum kit, fireworks coming off the bass guitar, and super duper fireworks coming off the pedal steel. So I just used to just throw a couple notes down, and I said, I got to approach this thing like Greg did, and just play really simple. And that's kind of what's the preferred style. When I play on other people's records, I don't play a lot. I don't play a lot of notes, and I just play what's necessary, So it's been able to adapt to all these different kinds of music. And, even kicking pedals. I love that you bring up kicking pedals, because, you can hear it all the way through to, playing a solo on, Oye Como Va with Santana.
Absolutely.
And just killing it. And it's still Chester doing Chester, and it still works through all those styles of music, So
Greg Rowley being, exactly. I dig that.
And you look at a guy like Steve Winwood, who didn't even take a bass player on that last tour. He kicked pedals that whole tour. I'm not sure.
Jeez.
I'm not sure if 50 or 60% of his audience realized he was doing that.
Of course they did not. Only freaks like me understand. Of course they didn't. But he wasn't.
I give it to some people to go like, "Where's the bass player?"
Oh, that's true. They're like, "Where is the bass?" That's right.
Yeah, how come nobody's playing bass? Where's that coming from? So, but to watch him do that in his style of music and play, all the Traffic stuff and all the hit songs, and Man, that was really neat. Really cool to do it. Really cool to see that. That's, so there's just so much you could do with it. I don't doubt that the cover of the manual is wrong. I think it probably was the king of options.
Well, I mean, it's. Now, have you been in a situation where you have provided the bass lines for a band?
Yeah, I don't. I'm usually in bands with bass players, so I don't kick pedals on a regular basis.
Can you talk about a time when you did? When you did? Because I mean, what I'm trying to get at is like there's a record on Black Jazz Records, Chester Thompson, called Powerhouse, and it's Rudolph Johnson on tenor, Al Hall on bone, so it's tenor bone, and then Ray Pounds on drums and Chester on B3, and it is. I have the bass, the he's kicking the pedals, he's splitting his brain in half, and these are not like, the notes are just different. They're round, but they're, I mean, can you talk about when you did do that and how it changed, if at all, the rhythm of the band at all?
Yeah, my favorite one is an artist called Charlie Mars. I did a record with him in Austin, Texas, and it was a record where all the musicians were in the room at the same time looking at each other, old school like we used to do it.
Yeah.
And George Reef was the bass player on there. George passed away a couple of years ago. Wonderful, wonderful human being and a great bass player. Played on a ton of great records. Austin, Texas native, and just a great guy. But so he and I were sitting across from each other, and as Charlie was showing us this song, we sort of came up with, a little choreography where I would play the lower octave on the pedals, and he would get above it on the higher octave with a counterpart. So the song is called "Like a Bird, Like a Plane." Charlie Mars is the artist, and it became a really cool thing, and a thing that we always struggled to recreate live because just the certain sound we were able to get out of everything. But the pedals of the B3, they'll sustain forever. The note doesn't let up until you pick your foot up. So that amount of sustain is something that a bass guitar can't do. And so if that's why it tends to sound different when you hear it, but also they can really work together well.
Well, we're volleying back and forth, but this is, Ginty's just returning my serves with ease. We have another Name That Voice. It's a slightly long story, but take a listen to it and we'll come back.
I did not start singing with people as a spiritual practice, as a way to save myself until I was so close to dying of despair. Maharji sent me back from India. First, we sang to him in India. He was sitting there and we sang to him. He liked that, so we did it. It was never a self-referential spiritual practice, a self-conscious spiritual practice. It was just a joyful experience, singing to him. He sit there and smile and laugh and throw fruit at us, So then he sent me home
just to be
America.
clear, he was singing like you were singing like raga?
Indian chant.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah, and then so I started learning those chants in India, and I would sing a lot there because I liked to. Then he sent me back to America after 2.5 years, and then he left the body. Then he died before I could get back, and I was so crushed by that. I was so attached to him physically as being the only place, the only way I had ever been happy was when I was with him, in a certain kind of happiness that I thought it was over for me now, and he's gone, and that's it. I'll never be happy again. So I started to live in a very less way. And a lot of things happened. I got involved with heavy drugs again. I was strung out on free days for about 1.5 years, 2 years at one point. And I didn't start singing to him again until 1994, which was 21 years after he died. Because I was standing in my room in New York, and I was really in bad shape, very unhappy, tremendous despair. And I walked into the living room, and I was struck like a lightning bolt with the understanding that if I did not sing with people, chant with people, I would never clean out the dark corners of my own heart. And of course, I intuitively understood that that was my only problem. That all my suffering was coming from this darkness and these shadows in my own heart. And that chanting was the only way that I had to do that. It was just a flash. And even then, it took me a few months to figure out how to start doing that. But that's why I sing. I don't sing to have bliss, to have joy. I sing to fucking live.
John, I apologize about the language there. Do you
No, that's okay.
Do you want to take a guess at who that is?
The story is incredible. I can't wait for you to tell me who that is.
I can't. Well, this is what I've been doing for 9 years. That was the kirtan chanter Krishna Das. You know Krishna Das?
Okay. I do actually. I've produced a couple records and engineered a couple records for a duo called Gandharva, and it's
really. Wait, hold on a second, because I just want to be clear. I just can't believe you dropped that. First of all, for the record, I interviewed Shannon McNally last week, which is just so funny that you talked about the Letterman thing, but because she brought up that tune, she brought up that hit tune that you guys played on there. Anyway, Gandharva was an album by Beaver and Krause, but that was back in 1970. You know, they were the two electronic pioneers, but you're not. This is a different group, Gandharva.
This is different. Yeah, this is different. This is a world percussion duo out of New Jersey.
Jeez.
Yeah, Chuck Wood and Chuck and I have done a ton of work together.
Is it Charles Wood? Does he go by Charles or Chuck? I think I know that. I know that cat. I know. We're friends on. Dude, he's a huge fan of the Jake Feinberg. I love that cat.
Okay, so it's the rock and roll music world is such a small place.
It is,
right?
yeah.
So Chuck and I go way back with Neal Casal. Chuck played on a bunch of Neal Casal stuff, and he's in the same world as Dan Fadell, and so I produced and engineered a couple of his records, and probably, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 different Neal Casal projects over the years, and he's done a bunch of Ginty band gigs too. So he started, I'm a halfway decent engineer, and I have a halfway decent studio here. So he started coming over, bringing different world percussion instruments over and having me record them. And all of it was kind of news to me. So I got a real education doing this record. And then he brought over his friend Alan. Alan is a great tabla player.
Oh.
Tabla is a whole different scene.
The polyrhythms there is insane. Yeah.
Yeah, just the tuning and the playing of it, and I was really fascinated with it and how to record it. And I don't know, I guess I did a halfway decent job, and the people in our world who heard the record thought the record. And he would go on to play tabla with Krishna Das for he's been doing it for years. So
wait, I want to be clear. His name is Alan, or is it Arjun? Arjun.
It's now Arjun, yeah.
Yeah, no, I interviewed Arjun. I interviewed Arjun. I mean, I love that. That dude is another Jersey cat. Jersey cats. I mean, it's just Jersey is through and through. Arjun Brugman is a fucking ridiculous player, man.
Incredible. He's incredible, man. And what an education I got from him. So
This is
So
the
yeah,
que-
we
this is
spent
the question.
hours down here in my studio recording that stuff, and we've worked on a couple different projects together. He's great. I always call him Alan because that's just how.
No, I just love that you brought up Chuck
years
Wood.
ago.
Chuck Wood, Charles he's on Facebook as Charles, and Arjun. They're both friends. They're both. I can't wait to transcribe that story. The reason for so long, Ginty, I thought that as a musician, the last thing that Krishna Das said was, I don't sing for bliss. I sing to effing live. It's life and death. I've heard Reggie Workman say that about jazz, that if you're really playing jazz, spiritual music with tension and release and pulse and being fearless, that it is a matter of life and death. And, I did want to ask you about the late, great Neal Casal, because I had gotten close to Neal, not nearly as close as other people, but the last couple of years I found myself kind of going around and checking out his projects as in the world of whatever the jam world, if you want to call it that. And
Yeah, mm-hmm. Sure.
it strikes me like my first book came out, which I'll send you in 10 days. I realized it's called The Cats, Volume 1, Life on the Bandstand of Life with Master Musicians, and it's a book of my interviews. And I realized that I didn't have any of my peers in the book, and even though Neal's 10 years older than I am, I reached out to him. I said, hey, man, these are the 2 interviews we did, and I transcribe. Right. Check it out. If you dig it, let me know, and you can be in the book. And he's like, man, I'm stoked. It's great. And so he couldn't figure out how to do the electronic waiver sign. So he snail mailed me the waiver. And obviously 10 days later, he tragically left the world. And, yeah, and I wonder if you think that, because I've talked to enough people to know, so many younger cats looked up to Neal, not just because he was just an awesome human being and a great musician, but they were like, damn, I kind of want to have that musical life. It seemed, at least on the surface, that he had some kind of momentum. And I know that he wasn't necessarily in the greatest space. And I saw him last summer for the last domestic Christopher Robinson Brotherhood shows, and he did seem a little bit uncomfortable in his skin. And I know he was financially, he was at least nervous about that stuff. But was Neal Casal, could you honestly say that music to him was a matter of life and death?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we had plenty of opportunity to prove that over and over and over and over and over again since I met him in 1994. So yeah, it certainly was. There's really no explaining. There's no explanation. There's no answer. There's no thing that anybody could say that makes sense.
I agree.
I think it's pretty public knowledge at this point that he left a note, and there's nothing in there that is an answer. There's nothing in there that makes this or makes you go like, oh, okay, right, I get that. It's just not there. So as far as how come it wasn't enough? I don't know. My own little moment was at the end of the year last year. I saw my eye caught it. It said it was like CNN's People We Lost in 2019. And I looked at it and I said, he's in there. There he is, Neal Casal. Made the CNN list of people we lost in 2019. And I went, there's a lot of people out there who committed suicide, and it's not going to make it on CNN. There's a lot of people out there who are, working really hard and trying really hard to be great artists and have people recognize their art. And things are going to happen to them, and they're not going to be on CNN. Was it really that bad, man? You made it onto CNN. I don't know. There was just something about that poked me the wrong way.
Well, tell me, to go deeper on that. I mean, is it that you were actually, because I mean, it's interesting because I can't wait to, literally in the intro to the second chapter of the book. I mean, there's everybody from Billy Cobham and Pat Martino to David Lindley and Lee Sklar in this volume 1 of this book, and then the middle section, which was never intended to be, is dedicated to Neal. And I literally wrote in the intro, I said, no one will, and I just was kind of riffing off the top, but I just said what you said, nobody will understand. No, none of this is logical, and we'll never get an answer. And there are people who love Neely so much, and they're like, I got to see the note. I'm like, I don't want to see the freaking note. I don't care about the damn note. It's like, the point is, were you upset that he did what he did? Was that the point? I mean, to me, it's just, I'll let you riff away, but he just said, to me, the people that have seen the note, or that I don't even want to, but people say that in essence, Neal had a bucket list and he had checked all those boxes. In his mind, he had accomplished everything he wanted to do in his musical life and his professional life, but it still doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that. But there's definitely an anger phase to it, and I'm definitely stuck.
Sure.
Talk
about it, because you know what? You knew him better than I did. I mean, he was like a musical compass for my journalism. I was sort of like following him, not just him. It was like the people he surrounded himself with. And, I talked to all these people that just, were, he stopped and was so gracious to everybody. And yet, I will say that, I've been talking to my older daughter about it because she's reading the book and has been affected by Neal, just what happened to him. And I just remember that some magazine, forget the name of it, but after it all went down, the legendary Gary Waldman was quoted in this article saying that this particular woman that will remain nameless ruined his life, and that she was I don't want to say stalking him, but also like threatening his family. And it's, so I know that there was a lot of different components to it, but I mean, a lot of other people that I talked to said that they were shocked but not surprised, because they had seen Neal in some dark places before. And I guess more to the point, the floor is yours. Talk about what you want. Neely's listened to this. I've been continuing to pay tribute to him through stories and homage. He deserves it. And I'd just like you to get some stuff off your chest about how you really feel about everything and what you miss most about your musical brother.
Well, that's a bit of a tall order, but what I miss definitely, everything stems from music. He plucked me out of a cover band that was playing the Wetlands in 1994 when I was 20, and put me in the music business. And every music connection that I have, everybody that I know, everything that I've done, all the records I played on, all of that stuff came at the good graces of Neal Casal, because I'm not on the phone with you right now if it's not for Neal. Right. All of it. Right. I could draw a line back all the way back to him. So, and when we started, I was on the road and he was on the road. We were literally ships crossing in the night. One of the last texts I had with him was, I was on the boat going from England to France, and he was on the boat going from France to England. CRB had just played this festival in Belgium. They played Friday, I played Saturday. And one of the last times I saw Neal was in Newark Airport. And if I had not looked up from my phone and he had not looked up from his phone, we'd have literally ran right into each other. Physically ran right into it.
Wow.
It was hysterical.
Wow,
we laughed really hard about it. Yeah, it was
that was after the ships passing in the night, or around?
Yes. Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah. It was one of the last times I saw him. So, so I know. I've heard all the stories about this, that, and the other,
Yeah.
and I know he was definitely in some dark places. I've heard those stories too, and those weren't things that. I mean, he didn't share with a lot of people, but those weren't things that he was sharing with me the past couple of years. And even though I heard stuff and I'd reach out and we would talk, it was just never, I was never concerned. Let's put it that way. So, while some people say like I wasn't surprised, I was surprised. I was shocked, actually. I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. It's really hard to get your head around. Neal is the second musician that is near and dear to my heart who has committed suicide. And those are Bill Feehan, the drummer for the cover band that Neal plucked me out of. He also committed suicide. Yeah, he was also my brother. So I've lost two of them, and I know.
How do you spell his last name, by the way? The drummer, Bill.
Feehan, Bill Feehan.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Dig. Oh, I didn't know that. Anyway,
New Jersey drummer. Played in a band called Rose Hill, and actually I had him and Dan Fidel double drum one night with Neal Casal sitting in on guitar and vocals at the Wetlands.
Dude, where's the audio? I need the analog cassettes of that immediately. Fidel is on. You have it. Are you serious?
It exists. Yeah.
Oh my! Dude, I need a little taste of that. Go ahead, continue, please.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. But so, the last couple of years of his life, that wasn't really. It just wasn't on my radar. So I was surprised. I'm still surprised. I'm still mad. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to process it. And I'm still in it. He left unreleased tracks that we're working on. There's a tribute album and a foundation that we're working on. There's a book that we're working on. There's videos. I have a video of the last session I did with him for one of my songs out in California with Jim Scott. I have the whole thing on video, and it's an unreleased track. So there's still a big pile of Neal Casal work to get done that's getting done, and that's weird. And it's strange to hear these tracks and strange to hear his voice, and it was really strange to play the memorial service. That was one of the weirdest days of my life.
I want to tell you something. This just shot into my head, but Chris Parker, the original drummer from Stuff, he told me a story that I'll just make it real quick. But he went down to do a session with Alan Toussaint in New Orleans. This is going back to probably late '70s, and the guy he was sharing the Howard Johnson with had pneumonia. So on the way back from New Orleans, Chris was felt like he was dying, like he had never felt like that. And people, his wife at the time, and people wanted to get him to the hospital, and he's like, "No, man, I got." That Stuff had a gig that night, double drums with Gadd and Gordon Edwards and Richard T. And he's like, "I got to make the gig. I got to go to the gig." And so he played the whole gig, and the entire time, he told me, he's like, "I just wanted to crawl into bed. I just wanted to be in bed. So all I did was play completely, just like out of body, totally not thinking about anything, not worrying about anything, not worrying about people in the crowd, nothing. It was just visceral to get through the gig." And afterwards, people came up to him and they said, "I have never seen you play like that in my life." And I got to tell you, I watched that. It was really the first time I saw you play. I watched that East Coast tribute concert, and I'm not saying that you were physically sick, but recognizing that you were kind of out of body, and it must have, like you said, it was weird. That was the word you used. Dude, you were up there for hours. You kept playing every song. Honestly, it just seemed to me that, I don't know. I know a lot of people probably would say this, but it seemed to me that you spent a long amount of time on the bandstand, at least early in the concert. And it seemed like it just seemed like it was holding you together, and that all you could think about was just playing. I could be wrong, but you can tell me what that experience was like. Yeah,
it was surreal for a lot of reasons. I mean, obviously, the first and foremost, the occasion. But my day started at 4 a.m. in Nashville. I was recording a record with Crystal Bowersox, who's American Idol, I don't know, 2012 or something. She was on the show. She was great. She's a great singer-songwriter. Doing her new record in Nashville. She's amazing. I left her session, late at night, 4 a.m. lobby call, on a plane, land in Newark. My buddy picks me up. We drive up to the theater. I rehearse all those songs that are incredibly familiar, doing pretty unfamiliar versions and unfamiliar keys with a couple people that I've just met. So
just for the record, you crushed it out of the park. I mean, there might have been you might have hit a clam here or there, but it was burning. Fadell and you took me to a new level that night, really.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it.
That's true.
That.
It's true, man.
I had to sort of shelve my emotions and do the job because, once again, I know a lot of people are going to see this and a lot of people are going to feel this, and I want this to be right. I want it to be great. So, I had charts and I had notes and I had hours of rehearsal and I had a bunch of I kept joking with Gary. I said it's just a day of oh, by the way, you're going to do Sideways with Citizen Cope. Haven't played that song with him since 2008. Okay. By the way, we're going to play Ship of Fools with Neal's vocal going, and we're just going to try to hang on with his guitar. And oh, by the way, we need you on. I mean, there was all day. It was just a bunch of oh, by the ways. And so yeah, it was a long thing. And I played on the stuff I needed to play on and felt I should play on, and stuff that I originally played on the records or whatever, and just try to do whatever Gary wanted. Just be there for Gary. He was masterful at how he got that done, and that was a heavy day, man. I didn't get back home till it was every bit of 4 o'clock when I pulled in New Jersey. So yeah, that was a long day.
I just want you to talk to Neely about because I mean, like you said, there's not going to be. I've just been on this trip long enough to know that so much of what I'm trying to get at is unquantifiable. There's only two letters that separate magic and music, and somehow I've been able to get musicians to be able to articulate a lot of stuff that is not easily articulated in this spiritual thing. And is it just? Do you feel? I guess here's the thing. Neal was a giver, man. He gave. You said it yourself. You can trace a line back to him. All your connections in music. He plucked you out of a band. He got you started. He did that for a lot of people. He did that for everyone. He gave to everybody, and yet he left no room for himself. And so when he got into a dark space at a certain point, he obviously just drowned. And it's like, is that where the anger stems from, that he didn't reach out, or is it that you didn't pick up on the signals, or that it just will never really ever make sense?
Yeah, all the above, all those things, and obviously I only have one clue that I've been able to pick up on, and it makes sense to me, and I guess it's important for people to know that even though I am angry at Neal, and that's nothing new. He and I were angry at each other a lot.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. He used to tell me you gotta, because I played him that Krishna Das clip, and then I asked him, I'll send you the interview. You're gonna crack up because I played him the same clip, and he just said to me, he's like, I said, is music a matter of life and death? And he said, let's lower the drama needle. and then at the end, he came back and actually absolutely validated that for him, it was a matter of life and death. So anyway, continue.
Clue that I have, and it is important, I think, for people to know that I hear them, is I talk to a lot of people about Neal, a lot, hundreds of people I've talked to about Neal. People that I know, people that I tour with, people I see on the road. When you travel, you see a lot of people. So I've talked to a lot of people about it. 1 out of every 7 people says to me, "Yeah, no, I've been there. I get it. I've been there." And I go like, "Wow, okay, I get that." So, this is a case of clinical depression. He was depressed, and you can't always see depression for what it is, because it'll always be just kind of baffling how 48 hours before he took his own life, he's on stage at Lock-In, with my brother Dwayne Betts and a whole cast of
O'Teal was up there. Yeah,
O'Teal,
absolutely. Yeah.
And he's full smiles, and he's playing his ass off, and he looks super happy, and then he's gone. So, obviously, when depression doesn't always fit exactly what you think it might.
You're making a good point, because you're making a good point because there's depressives that just people think about depression. It's like lethargy. They can't get out of bed. They're pissing in Gatorade bottles. They can't even go to the bathroom. But then there's also like a manic depression where you can be incredibly hyperactive or, able to perform and be very, prolific. And then you just go into, it's also an idea of saying, I also believe that, you have to love yourself before you can love other people. And Neal obviously loved himself, and that's why it's hard. He was just always very hard on himself. I just remember him after Circle shows and being backstage and like 14,000 feet above sea level, and he just comes back and we're sitting there, and I just had a ball, had total discarga, total spiritual discharge, and he's talking about how his amp sucks and how he didn't like his sound that night. I'm like, dude, he was just so overly critical. It seemed to me that he didn't give himself enough room to breathe. At the end of the day, that's going to take you down. Do you get visited him in dreams? Do you talk to Neely still? You guys are super close, and I know that from enough people, I know enough. I've done enough. Part of my shows about overcoming adversity, and people do talk about still, connecting with spirits that have left this planet.
Well, yeah, no, nothing really like that. It's I don't really get that deep with it, but no, I don't. But and I don't think Neal would want me to either.
Interesting.
Yeah, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I guess what you and I have figured out here is that, can you imagine what it's like to be an amazing, talented singer, songwriter, guitar player like Neal Casal, to be so depressed that your insides feel like the person who's trapped under the covers and can't get out, but you're stuck on the road, which will eat you alive, which was the first thing that we covered. So can you imagine that deadly combination of somebody who admits to you that the music is live or die? So you're going to go out there and do the music in a place that will eat you alive, the road, which never ever stops. But he's depressed enough that he wants to be, that his insides are the person who won't get out of bed. Can you imagine that deadly combination?
Absolutely. Actually, I can't. It sounds like an absolute nightmare.
So maybe in this past conversation, in this past hour, you and I have figured out another clue.
Well, I think there's a clue. There's a clue in this. Well, there's a clue in the sense also where and I think that this is. I remember I had this talk with him in July, and speaking about different forms of depression, he was like he literally was like jumping out of his skin. He didn't look comfortable in his skin. He was not at ease. It was almost like bed bugs, and then he was talking about his amp, And I said, well, why don't you go get a Fat Jimmy amp? Mike Pascal probably hook you up. He's like, I can't afford it, man. I'm broke. So he was like, you know, he was focusing on these things. And then, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I think that he was also looking at some, yes, they were on the surface. There were some, it wasn't just the surface. I mean, Circles Around the Sun was a great touring band, but CRB broke up. And I think he was looking at and saying, can I maintain this existence? I feel like I'm drowning financially. I feel like I have no room to breathe. I feel like I can't get out of bed, even though I have to go on the road in order to make a living, like we said. And it just comes down to the fact that he was looking at kind of a leveling out of, did he want to keep doing this for the next, till he died, till the rest of his life? You know, I don't, and to me, there was an answer in a dark place somewhere where he said, I can't continue. Still baffling. But, you know, I just know that it's guys like you and Neely and other people that are still here that, you know, that are going to keep the vocabulary of music moving forward and, you know, are going to be able to help younger generations, as you already have, learn how to create spiritual music, no genre included. So, I mean, Ginty, I mean, let's just, we barely got to anything today. Can we do part 2 after the drive-in concert, maybe the end of June?
Of course.
All
Yeah,
right.
of course.
Yeah, I mean, this has been very, I mean, it's always healing for me, but I mean, it's just, I mean, I think that's the thing, man. Like, you know what your purpose in life is. I know I found my purpose in life behind the microphone, and Neely had his purpose in life, and once you do that, it's pretty intoxicating stuff. So, yeah, that whole dichotomy of having to be out there in front of people when you can barely get the covers, you know, you're suffocating under the covers. That's paralysis, and based on your 1/7 ratio, not uncommon for the creative. So that's what worries me because there's no bandstand right now, and there's only the covers. So I worry about people, you know, as this thing prolongs. So, I mean, you're a beacon of light, Ginty, and it was fantastic to hang, man. Very humbled.
Thank you, Jake. Thanks for having me, man. I love talking with you, and I would love to do a part 2.
We're just getting cooking, man.
This goes.
Yeah, no,
I can't wait to tell you how it goes.
Yeah, no, you know what, man? You think there's a possibility that there'll be some kind of live streaming, or it might just be you might get rid of the technology?
I do think that's a possibility, and you know, hopefully we could sell it out at the max capacity of cars there, and if we do that, then I'll make
this
sure
is so insane. I'm actually pretty geeked up about it. Also, please, if possible, I just want to hear the late drummer and Fadel and you guys cooking at the wetlands. I mean, we got to get that out as a release or something. That is going to be the most burning thing I've ever heard in my life.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that I send a link to you with that before we talk.
Yeah, man. Much love to you. Be safe and keep cooking the groove, man.
You too, Jake. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man.
Everybody be well.
Be cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
John Ginty, part 1 in the books. R.I.P. Neal Casal. We will never totally understand, and that's okay. We'll be back in a little while on the Jake Feinberg Show. Until then, peace.